It's a beautiful day today, although still windy and a bit cold. I'm wearing a thick jacket, but I still think it would be a great time to do a bit of gardening. In the previous episodes, I've been working on the Echeveria mound and my logos and doing a bit of maintenance. I haven't been able to do a lot of things in the meantime because it has been raining on and off. We even had a bit of hail last week, which means that my soil was constantly wet and I didn't have the chance to work with dry soil. I think the soil right now is sufficiently dry to do anything, and it might rain again in the next few days. So I think I should make the most of this time today and do a bit of planting. So let's plant. Here is where we left off from the last episode. I was working on this little bowl here. I made my logo out of rocks. And then I also had this logo made, which is really lovely. I really like it. Which brings me to the next part of the build. I would like to be able to work on this left side here, my agavoides and my clumping area. My original vision for this area was to create something tall and have it cascade downwards. I've been thinking of purchasing a garden arch, just to be a focal point, the phallus of this design. But the problem is, I've been hesitant about doing that because I'm still not sure how I would like to arrange stuff, So before I would commit to spending that much, I think it would cost me a couple hundred of dollars. It's going to be an investment. So before I jump down the rabbit hole, I think it would be better if I do this in stages. You know how I always used to talk about doing things incrementally? Well, I think doing things incrementally here would be the best choice. I think what I should be doing is to create a version 1 of the arrangement of the design and revise it later on after seeing how the plants react. Because in all honesty, it would be the first time for a lot of them to be in this spot. For the most part, they have been located on the other side where they have been getting a lot more sunlight. And that's how I found out that a lot of my agavoides would appreciate having less light. But if I move them here, I'm not sure if that would be too little light. So the plan here now is to have them here for a few seasons, maybe even a year, and see how they would react and see how they grow. If they do well, then maybe next year I'll go with the arch idea. Or at least next growing season, which would be during the warmer months. That's not too long from now. However, in keeping with the original idea of the design, I still need something that would be tall, towering over all of the plants, over all of the tiny rosettes. And I have something in mind. I'm thinking of using this Senecios barbertonicus. As you can see, it forms a bush and it has a different texture compared to the rest of the plants. It is obviously not a rosette and it grows upwards and grows tall. It has these leaves that are long and pointed upwards like a brush. So this would definitely stick out and stand out among all of the rosettes. I would just need a suitable container to go with it. Going along the same vein with the Senecios barbertonicus, I'm thinking of adding a bit more contrast and color in the form of blue chopsticks. I will be using these ones. These are Senecios serpens, the compact or the dwarf version of the blue chopsticks. I've got lots of them, including cuttings, especially since I removed all of those chopsticks from the ground in the Patreon shrine. So lots of plant material, man. I've also been entertaining the idea of using more jelly beans, Sedum rubrotinctum and Sedum pachyphilum, and maybe even some of the aurora, rubrotinctum aurora. They would be serving as the fillers and providing a bit of contrast and color because they have a very different texture from the rosettes. So between this and the blue chopsticks, I think we have a lot of contrast going on. Now going back to the Senecios barbertonicus, I'm thinking of using that large pot over there where the aeonium is in, the black one. And the reason I picked that is because I want the whole thing to be towering over the other plants, and that's one of the largest pots that I have, or at least the largest pots that I could still lift around. That aeonium has to go now. It would be transferred into the ground or into some other pot. Imagine this lime green yellow plant in this maroon pot. surrounded by green agavoides and blue chopsticks. Colors, man. Like most of my builds, I would need to do some staging of the plants, and to do that, I'll need to remove all of these pots first, just to give me the space to work in. And I'll have to see how things would look like together. Yeah. Stupid. The soil that I used here before is so clumpy, it has lots of sawdust and wood chips. I still do have lots of the pebbles, so I could just mix them here. If you could still remember what happened to the blue chopsticks over at the Patreon shrine, they were growing so tall that I have to remove all of them. Well, now I have them surrounding the pot, which is quite tall and they could grow. But I would need to add a barrier between the chopsticks and the outside. And for that, I'm thinking of using rocks as my barrier. I'm going to create a maybe 2 or 3 wide layer. This is what Laura Eubanks usually call the ribbons. So I'm going to lay it around, maybe go around the pot, around the blue chopsticks. There's a huge chance that I'll just go circular, but we should just let our creativity flow from here. I am using what they call Tuscan rock, and I got this from Soilworks under the brand of, I think it was Safari or Sahara, more like Safari. And these things, they have a brown, gold, and yellow-orange tinge to them. Very warm, and this would make great contrast against the blue chopsticks. And if you recall, the pot is warm, it's brown, followed by cool blues and another layer of warms. So yeah, I think that would make a great contrast. I'm placing these rocks here because I want to create a barrier, like I said earlier, and at the same time this would prevent all of the blue chopsticks from spilling over outside. This also means that I have some place to step on if I need to work on this area, because part of me wants to just fill up this whole space with rosettes. I have to make sure that this is wide enough for my foot. I think I would have to add a bit more. Perfect. Here's how things are looking like so far. I think it's pretty neat, pretty clean, It's pretty formal, professional looking. So what I have to figure out next is where all of these plants would be going. I've been thinking that I'd like the agavoides to be somewhere around here near the logo bowl, and the rest of the plants would be around there. As far as design is concerned, I would like to cover the whole thing in a tapestry, which means that planting everything close together. Of course, I would still need to give a bit of space for some of the plants, especially the smaller ones, because they would be growing, and I would not want them to be pushing into each other so much that they would be stunted. I was thinking that on this side, further along by the fence, would be the, I don't know, the jelly beans maybe. That way, even if they grow taller, they wouldn't block the view of anything else. Then everywhere else here would be rosettes. Although I could also use some jelly beans in between, you know, just to create dividers, just to create something interesting. You know, a shift in texture, I guess. I thought of placing the agavoides here because they've been sitting here for, I don't know, weeks, months now, and they seem to be doing fine. So I guess this spot would be good for them, and at least compared to being right next to the fence, along the fence, they would be getting more sunlight here, and they would need that sunlight to maintain their lovely colors, except maybe for the green ones. But even so, even the green one like this one, the red edge, it requires lots of sunlight to maintain the lovely edges. So this spot would be theirs. The other decision that I have to make is whether I should keep them in pots or plant them in the ground. Some of them I might leave in pots, in maybe this type of pots or in some of the low bowls. It depends on their size and how attention grabbing they are. For instance, an agavoides of this size, it deserves to stay in a large pot. Place it somewhere here, give it a bit of height, a bit of elevation. That would make things a bit more interesting. For the smaller ones or the other types, I would just lay them on the ground in a specific arrangement such that they would complement each other in terms of colors, textures, and shape. They would be growing similarly in terms of height. That way they won't be covering each other, they won't be blocking the view of one another. I'm hesitant about planting them in the ground right now because I haven't really finalize which plants I'll be taking with me in the succulent competition in October. As you know, I've been looking around for suitable pots that I would pair with some of my lovely plants here to bring into the competition. And of course, they need to be in pots, that way I could transport them. Otherwise, if I plant them in the ground, what's the point? I'll be pulling them up again. So I guess throughout the time until the next episode, I should give a lot of energy, a lot of thought into which plants I would be taking with me in the competition. That way, I would figure out which plants I could use here, you know, process of elimination. If you have any thoughts, any suggestions on how I should design this area, for reference, I intend to use rosettes, mostly Echeveria, mostly the round, the bowl-like, and the spiky Echeverias, and with only a little breakup in texture by using some of my filler plants here, jelly beans, maybe the graptocidiums, something that clamps really well. So if you have any ideas, any suggestions for me, just put them down in the comments and I'll go read them. And there's one more thing that I want to show you. In one of my past videos, Marie Salonga, you remarked about how large this big red is compared to my face. And I said that this isn't even the largest in my collection. The largest one is my Zorro, which is in my Patreon shrine. Let me just show you. So here it is, right next to my face. I'm not sure if you can see how larger it is compared to the other one, so let me place them side by side. So if you see, the big red is way smaller compared to the Zorro. Crazy, huh? I'll see you in the next episode. Lay down your suggestions in the comments and see you next time. Bye. Cerriscapades is made possible with the support of my Patreon sponsors. Patreon allows you to support content creators like me with a small monthly donation. You can pledge your support by heading over to patreon.com/Cerriscapades. If you're in Australia, I've got some of my plants for sale. Check out my plant shop at cerriscapades.com/theplant shop with dashes.